Good morning. This is David Bozen from Sprigeo, and another beautiful sunny day over in California and a nice sunny afternoon over in New Jersey. Today we have the pleasure and honor of having Randy Nathan, or Coach Randy Nathan, with us today. So a little bit of a background about him, and this was in 2005. Randy Nathan was a 37-year Colorado native who lived in West Orange and is a member of Temple Emmanuel in Livingston. Was happily pursuing his career as executive director of Temple Benai Or in Morristown when, in March, he was asked to coach a local boys baseball team. Nathan went to an internet search engine and entered coach to find resources for brushing up on drills and exercises for the 8-year-olds who would be entrusted into his care. Instead, he stumbled upon something he hadn't heard of before: life coaching. Not quite therapists, but something more than personal assistants. Life coaches offer clients expert advice and encouragement for making improvements in their lives. It was something that he could do well, Nathan told New Jersey Jewish News in a recent interview at a local Starbucks coffee house. Not for the entrepreneurs, professionals, and career switchers who usually hire coaches, but for teenagers. So it's a pleasure to have you on, Randy. And if you could, pick it up from there and tell us how you got into the position you are right now at Project NextGen.
Loaded question. Take a lot of time. Hope you have a lot of paper, a lot of pencils. From that moment, that was at a moment in my life where I discovered that life was pretty short. It followed the unexpected passing of my younger brother, Mark, of blessed memory. And he, in that moment, I realized that life was pretty short, and that what I wanted to do, I was not really doing at the time. I had achieved tremendous success in terms of career, in terms of nonprofit. I was executive director, but I always wanted to really work with youth and teens and spend time in really fun ways to connect with them in such a way. When I was in school, I was an educator. I didn't like being called Mr. Nathan. It made me sound very old. But when I came across coaching, and I started to learn more and do a lot more research, I love the idea about being a coach. And as it said in the article, I coach baseball. That's the sport that I coach. But when I realized there's a whole different skill set, which is being an actual coach in life, I learned more about it. I quit my 15-year career, became a trained professional coach, and pretty much, as they say, it's kind of been history. It's been around for, my company's been around for about 7.5 years. We started off as your personal coach. Then a few years later into the business, we switched it to something called Project NextGen. My focus is working with individuals that are called millennials, people born between the ages of 1980 and 2001, and working on a myriad of situations in grade school, middle school, high school, college years, and trying to help individuals figure out who they are, where they're going, how they're going to get there.
That's fantastic. Now, could you tell us a little bit more about the LEAP program, because it's specific towards the younger generation, empowering young people in particular within schools?
I'm so glad. Thanks for asking about that program. That is a program I'm very proud of. As I began to develop a business, now mind you, I spent 15 years in nonprofit. I was an educated nonprofit executive in nonprofit management. I've never even considered running my own business or being now what I am as far as an entrepreneur. So I didn't know much about return on investment, cash flow, all those different business models that you learn in business school. I was in a different environment. And so I kind of just jumped in saying I have passion, I want to help kids, and just started coaching kids individually. But as I discovered individual coaching, it didn't allow me to provide the kind of revenue or income for my family, and that I wanted to really do this as a living, not just kind of like as a hobby. So as I discovered that the individual coaching sessions weren't going to be enough, I came up with an idea that I should do some group programs. And from that came the program called the LEAP program, which stands for Leadership, Excellence, Action, and Perseverance. And the idea behind the program is that when I speak, and I have a book coming out about this in a couple months, is that we are all kind of given a blueprint of life. And that blueprint sounds something like this. It pretty much starts in the middle of middle school, or beginning of middle school. You have to study hard. You have to get good grades in order to get into a good college, in order to get a good job, in order to make a lot of money. And then by that, you'll be happy and successful. And what I discovered with the passing of my younger brother was that I had followed all those directions, did all that. I had a college degree, graduate degree, worked hard, married, you name it. and I wasn't able to be happy or successful. I realized that true happiness is not about how much money you put in your pocket or how many medals you have on the wall. And I really struggled with that in terms of what my purpose was. And so in that program, what I've done is hopefully kind of reprogram or re-educate teens and youth in terms of what it means to be successful. That it's not about getting into a big college. That there's, matter of fact, over 6,000 colleges across this country, which 4,000 are degree certifying programs. And most kids don't even know what a good college is, but they just want to go there. And some of the most successful people went to a 2-year program, transferred to a 4-year, and they're great. So this whole idea behind good colleges, it seemed to be superficial. And the pressure that parents unknowingly put on the kids to go to that good college seemed to be a point of contention, a lot of stress. Parents go around and do lots of things for the kids, but sometimes the idea of failure and not doing well was the overriding message in terms of success. So in this program, in addition to the cornerstones of lead, excel, act, and persevere, I have what are called my 5 core principles. And my 5 core principles are a way that I want to, for lack of a better word, reprogram teens into helping give them a set of guidelines or a different kind of map of what success can be. So, for instance, my core principle number 1 is I am who I choose to be. That most people, adults included, feel like victims. Students, high school kids often feel like victims. They don't have a choice in things. I have to. I don't have a choice. What I've discovered is the most important thing is helping kids understand they do have a choice. They always have a choice, no matter what they do and what they face. And that's a sense of empowerment. That I am who I choose to be. And I also focus on the being part, not the doing part. It's not I choose what I want to do. It's I am who I choose to be, meaning we're all human beings. We always get focused on the human doing part. And just because you do something does not necessarily guarantee something. Success is about being. Happiness is about being. And if you choose to be happy, no matter what comes over the course of your life, obstacles, rewards, you have the choice of being happy in that moment. And so I teach them and I focus them on what it really means to be in life. My second core principle is that life is a journey, not a destination. And I have discovered through my experiences with this program with schools and teens, they often like that one. That the race is not just to college. It doesn't end there. It's not just getting the good job. That life is full of peaks and valleys and twists and turns. And there are good times, there's not so good times. And they need to understand the power of the journey. I often refer to The Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, who is a scene where he's walking up hiking with his mentor Socrates, and he gets to the top of the mountain expecting to see this great thing, and he kind of just points down to this rock. And so we often don't realize the significance of the journey. When I work with athletes and having to overcome challenges, it's not so much about winning the game, it's what it took to win the game. When I work with kids who experience unfortunate situations in school, the most important message I have, especially those who don't get treated very well, It Gets Better. It's a great organization called itgetsbetter.org that helps kids remind them that it's a journey, and you're only in this adolescent phase for a short period of time. And what faces you and what you face are really meant there for a purpose for you to learn and grow. So embrace that journey, because that's not the end. There's so much more. The destination, we're all in the same boat. The destination is somewhere 6 feet under, hopefully a long time away. That's the destination. Our bodies are just a vessel. And who we are and who we choose to be, and our journey is up to us. And the third core principle is that there are no mistakes, only opportunities, which kind of feeds into this idea of journey. And so in that regard, I often challenge teens, even adults, what if you never made a mistake? What if you knew you wouldn't make a mistake? What would you do in your life? How would you proceed? And like, oh my gosh, I would do anything I'd ever wanted to. Well, that's the same kind of concept. We hold our back based on our fears. We think about making mistakes. We think about failure, and it stops us cold. In school, we learn very early on about failure, particularly in middle school. That's when the grading system starts. F equals failure. Well, if you take the grading skill, F equals failure, you bring it back to A. The hard part about the grading skill is it's not real. A would equal average. B would add B, better than good. C would be, I can never figure out C. D would be dumb. And the thing that's ironic about the grading skill is E would actually be excellent. And so that's because it's so close to F. Schools don't even use E because then it completely messes up the entire grading system, and so we learn to fear failure. When actually we know from the greatest minds in the world that failure is what brought them greatness. That had they not done things and experienced setbacks and challenges, you wouldn't have electricity, you wouldn't have cars, you wouldn't have movies. All these things that we take for granted wouldn't exist. And so the whole idea, it's not about there are no mistakes, there's just opportunities for growth. And that when something doesn't go the way that you want to, I want to teach kids to embrace it. It's there for a reason. It teaches values and lessons. So if something's going on in school in particular, kids aren't being nice, aren't being pleasant, which happens all the time, it's how you put that in perspective to know that it's an opportunity for you to figure out how to get around it. That those life experiences you're going to have are going to have some kind of meaning at the end of the road. The fourth core principle is I'm greater than I appear to be. And to teens in particular, how they look and how they carry themselves and how they're seen is very, very important. They're very concerned about being accepted. Every kid I've ever spoken to just wants to go to school and be accepted. Nothing means more. But by the time we hit middle school, we begin to judge each other in such a way that what I have on the outside, the clothes, the hair, my whatever it might be, my jersey is somehow better than the person next to me. And so we begin to place the importance of what's on the outside. When I go talk to school students in particular, I often joke about, if I was to take, your pancreas and your pancreas and your pancreas and put all the people's pancreases on the table, and how can you tell whose pancreas belongs to who? And I use the word pancreas because most middle kids never hear that word. It's kind of a silly word. And the reality is, they understand, is that everybody's pancreas is the same. It's only once you start putting all this stuff on the color of our skin, the color of our hair, our eyes, we sense this sense of judgment. And that teens need to know that they are so much greater than they appear to be. That what's on the outside is kind of like a wrapping. It's what's inside on the matter. It's the inside that really matters. I often compare it to the grocery store and buying a bag of chips. And you spend all this time, these companies spend all this time in marketing for the outside. But all you really want is what's on the inside. Because once you get home, you throw the bag away. It doesn't even matter. And so the idea behind being greater than I appear to be is essential in helping kids understand that they need to see themselves on the inside, not so much on the outside. And frankly, if we were all to get cut at the same time, we all bleed red. And all teens are just as scared. All teens are just as nervous. All teens have really no idea what life is about, and they have questions that go inside their head. And once we begin to have this sense of acceptance, we begin to understand each other in that kind of way, that we are all greater than we appear to be. And the final core principle in the LEAP program is that I'm here for a special purpose. But I really want kids, and I think that happens a lot when we think alone at night in our rooms. We start thinking about maybe your parents are divorced, maybe you had a parent who passed away, maybe you're a foster kid. You start thinking, like, what in the world am I doing here? Why? I mean, I talk to teens all the time whose parents are divorced, and they go, I don't know what they were thinking. Why in the world did they really ever love each other? And how is it possible that I get created based on so much anger and hostility that I witness? And so they kind of think about, well, what's my purpose here? What am I here for? I don't get it. I happen to know in my own world, I always had this deep sense of desire that I really was here for some kind of special purpose. At times I thought I discovered it, and I'm still trying to figure out what my quote-unquote special purpose is. The more and more I live, the more and more I do, I don't think it's so much about me and my life and impacting kids as much as I love it. But my special purpose is really being a dad to my own kids. And that all the stuff that I go and I talk to other parents, kids, and teens about is not so much for the benefit of them, although I do know they get benefit. It's me to serve as a role model and a parent to my own kids. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 17. I have a son that's 15. I have a daughter that's in first grade and a 3.5-year-old. So I do see myself, my special purpose is making sure that I put them in a place where they can actually incorporate these thoughts and ideas and live these principles way, way before most people can in terms of adversity in their life. And that's a little about the LEAP program. It's designed to kind of meet on a regular basis. We have something called a life book that kids get. There's worksheets and workbooks. There's games, interactive pieces. And it's something that's designed to be used over and over again and sort of help them kind of figure out what they really want in life and how they set up in getting out of their own way.
That's absolutely fantastic, and I agree absolutely that that's one of the main things that you could do is really strive towards influencing people positively, towards making change or whatever else it may be. So, continuing on with that, could you give us a quick brief down of best ways for a student to mitigate bullying within the school?
I often get that question, and what I've discovered often, a lot of my clients I've coached who come to me because they're being picked on, humiliated, and teased in a number of different ways. And a lot of times after spending some conversation coaching sessions with them, it often comes to the forefront that unknowingly they often do things that kind of play into it. They often draw attention to themselves. Not giving people, condoning their behavior, but a lot of times I was working with a great kid, I'll call him Michael, 8th grader, really one of the smartest kids in class, was not very good on the basketball court. Was always the last kid picked, didn't have much fun, little heavy set, was often teased because of his inability to play basketball. But in the classroom, he always got the great comments from the teachers. The teacher would hand out the papers, "Great job, Michael, great job." And in front of the classmates, he would go, "Yes, yes." Meanwhile, everybody else's papers coming back, they're not doing so hot. So as an exercise, we discovered that. We decided just for 1 week, what would happen if we didn't make some kind of open comment in terms of that. And lo and behold, the following week, he said, "Wow, coach, it was really quite something. They weren't making fun of me anymore." So a lot of times in that situation, he was bringing it on himself. I had another 8th grade kid referred to himself as a chew toy. He literally came to me and said, "I feel like I'm going to school." It's a very, very athletic community, lots of sports again. And he said, "Coach, I feel like I'm a chew toy." And I said, "Well, what are chew toys used for?" "Well, it's for chewing on." I said, "Well, basically, then how's that helping you? If you see yourself as a chew toy, what are you going to be? A chew toy." So over the course of some coaching sessions, we begin to help him rethink about different pieces about who he was. And eventually it came from being a chew toy and shifting himself to he honestly believed he was a person of value. The moment he saw himself as a person of value, his thought changed, and he started to act differently. And he started thinking the other kids act differently toward him. What it was is he actually saw himself being worthy of something and no longer felt he deserved to be treated as a chew toy. And so it suddenly didn't go the way he wanted it to. He didn't go, "Oh, well, nothing I can do, but I'm a chew toy." He began to stand up for himself in such a way that said, "No, I don't have to buy into this. I don't have to. I'm actually something, a person of value." And what they said no longer had meaning. So part of those pieces is helping a lot of kids develop a skill set. So one of the most effective ways is something in coaching we call button pushing. Everybody has their button pushed. And a lot of times kids get their buttons pushed. And what happens is they make some kind of comment, something else, and so that child, that teen, that middle schooler reacts to the comment, thereby validating exactly what has been said and done. And so they've pushed their button. So it could be something about their eyes, their skin color, their smarts, their clothes, and all of a sudden they react to it. They let their button get pushed. And so in our coaching, we often discuss the difference between reacting and responding. And understand the difference. Reacting is based on emotion. Responding is based on some kind of awareness or thinking. And the whole idea is instead of letting them push your button, because no one can push your button unless you let them to, you're able to respond and come up with a different response to what's happening. But since we so often are so quick to go into our habits in terms of reacting, you automatically react to that situation only to often make matters worse. So in coaching, we step back and say, we talk about the green hair button. This is how I was trained. Is we'll make a joke about, your green hair is funny. And they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, I don't have green hair. I'm like, but dude, your green hair is so disgusting. You're such a green hair looking fool. And they just sit there going, "What are you doing? That's crazy." I said, "Have I hurt your feelings?" "No." "But if I made some kind of comment about your glasses or your nose or your hair, would that upset you?" "Well, yes, of course, because it's about me." I said, "Well, how is it that I can make a comment about green hair, you don't get upset, and in your hair and your glasses you get upset?" What you've done is given me permission to push your own button. And so part of what I do when I work with kids in this regard is how do we eliminate those buttons to become the green hair button. It's not easy, but I like to coach kids to get them in that situation to learn how to deal with it. Now, a lot of times things are violent in terms of physical pieces, and that's a whole different different ball game. But a lot of stuff that I get is verbal, sexual in nature in terms of harassment, demeaning comments, trying to put people away, just rather comments that are just meant to hurt someone's feelings. And so part of what I do with teens is help them understand the only thing that has meaning is the meaning you give to it. And since we're all so insecure, we all have so low self-confidence, but when someone calls us stupid or ugly or dumb, whatever it might be, we see in our own worlds, our own lives, our own lack of confidence, it's almost as if they kind of see through us and go, oh my gosh, they're right. I really am stupid. I really am not worthy, which is exactly the kind of thing that happened with the other kid I mentioned before. So part of it is helping kids understand that, A, no one's allowed to treat you that way, but there are things you can do to help yourself out because bullying's not going to stop, ever. It's just not. It's going to continue all the way up through college, through your job. There's going to be the glass ceiling if you're a woman. There's going to be mean bosses. It happens in politics. In communities, we call it politics. Well, it's just politics. Because we're supposed to accept it. In families, we call it sibling rivalry. On one hand, I want to give kids a chance to figure out how you deal with it, how you accept it, how do you persevere. I have a teen I coach when I was a senior at a school over in New Jersey, and they have a new law here in the state called the New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. And the first week of October, we're supposed to have what is called the Week of Respect. And so they have the students come early for school, and they have this great bullying assembly. They called it a bully assembly for 10 minutes, of course. And they said, of course, you know, we have the bullying law. And so they had an English teacher put together a PR piece for the students to watch and listen. And what does the teacher put in the presentation? He says, be nice to nerds. They're going to be your boss someday. So don't bully. That was what this teen got out of it. He's a high school senior. They're going to be your boss someday. Oh, okay. I know some great friends. I'm a nerd. I'm a nerdy guy with what I do. All of us at some point played band, did something in terms of what is, quote, stereotypical. That was said to a bunch of high school kids in terms of how to understand bullying. So the schools aren't going to do the opportunity and justice, and so kids need to understand there are things that they can do on their own to help empower themselves.
Absolutely, and that was also a quote, I believe, made by Bill Gates initially, to be nice to nerds. And just to end it off, because what you've presented thus far is amazing tips for students to actually, come to an understanding and really understand themselves internally and to not let outside things really bother them that much. But how would an administrator, how would a school deal with bullying in a more larger or broader way?
And I'll have a few minutes to answer that question.
Yeah.
I'll be frank, I travel all over the state, Northeast, schools, camps. The schools that take this seriously, and I mean take it seriously, it's not a checklist item. You don't have someone come in and say, okay, we had someone do bullying. That I'm part of the Alveus prevention program.
A great program.
And it's research-based. I was sent by the Educational Information Resource Center down in South Jersey. And it's very, very frustrating to me, David, is that most schools just do not do diligent in terms of this issue. Even though there are just so many tragedies, things have gone on in terms of raising people's awareness, every single time, we don't have the money, budget this, budget that. The governor cut $1 billion. We don't have, and I literally cut my price down. I have a certain rate what I offer to go in. I tell them, please, don't let money be the deciding factor. I will work with you. I mean, I'm living this way, but it's much more important. But I'll come in, I'll do the one-shot deal, and I'll be there for a week of respect, and I'll come and stir up the soup, and I'll leave. And they're going to wonder why things aren't different. That it is a comprehensive approach. And what most schools don't realize, administrators, is if you take the LVS program as something in that fashion and implement it, it has dramatic impacts not only on the way we treat each other, but schoolwork and coursework and behavior in the classroom and the entire community. This is a community-wide issue. It does not begin and end at the school door. We need to have this as an issue. I do a lot of stuff with bullying in sports. That is my niche. And coaches who are out there doing rec and travel have these same kids. And these coaches and what goes on, it's not, those things are happening on those fields, and they don't know how to deal with it. They're not stopping it. And some are even perpetuating it based on the manliness of being part of the team and how it goes back into the school environment. I only wish that administrators could step back and look at the kind of return on their investment. That for an elementary school, for the most part, I've done the dollars and cents. For an average elementary school, it's about $5,000 for a year, including the training, everything else. $5,000. They spend more on wasted paper, pencils, and supplies than possibly doing a program like this. They'll spend $3,000 on some kind of famous speaker to come in and speak once. And so I just would wish that administrators could step back, instead of looking at the dollar cents, have a vision for 3 years down the road to help build up the kind of community they really want. And that it is a long-term investment. There are no quick fixes. And that if you don't get buy-in from all the parts of the community and sit there and create a community-wide effort, it's just going to be just piecemeal, checklist after checklist after checklist.
Absolutely, and I mean, it most definitely pays off. Possibly not in the first year, but as you continue going on, then, I mean, it's an investment absolutely necessary in taking, especially to eradicate bullying within the schools. And, I mean, you're doing an amazing job with that, and Sprigeo, we're also trying our hardest to do that as well.
Yeah, you got a great app, and it's right there where technology is in terms of kids, particularly middle school and high school kids. They all have the smartphones, they all have the apps, and, gone are the boxes in front of the principal's office. I go to schools, they're so proud of their box. Students can provide comments right in front of the box from the principal's office.
Yeah,
I ask them what's the most common thing left in the box. It's often chewing gum.
Yep, absolutely. Students, when something serious happens, they're, for the most part, almost all the time, they will not go and report anything. That's why,
why would they? It's going to make matters worse. They don't trust the adults, especially in high school. They're going to be wasting time. My daughter, who has a learning disability, was actually bullied by a student in class, and the teacher, and I quote my daughter, smiled as if he was a teenager. She thought it was funny. And then as I approached the school saying, listen, I'm an expert in the field. I'm more than happy to come in. Please use me. Nothing. I honestly just want to help them out from a different perspective. Just come in and do the nice thing, and they kind of just swept it underneath the rug.
Yeah, it's most definitely, in order to eradicate this problem of bullying, it's most definitely going to require a paradigm change where we really approach it through a different sense and through the perspective of the students themselves. And when we actually do that
grassroots
and involve the community inside of it, then without a doubt it's going to become so much better.
So can I say one more thing, just a few more moments of something?
Absolutely.
And this is my new so-called bandwagon type of thing, or my soapbox. Is I coach baseball. I've done a lot with athletics, and I've coached a lot of kids in sports, and often in schools, some of the biggest bullying behavior comes from the situations from the athletes. And not just necessarily, it's kind of a mindset, because coaches do such a great job in terms of the concept behind team, at building a sense of awareness that they don't realize they're using those powers for evil, not good. And so my approach, I'm speaking at the International Bullying Prevention Association's convention in Kansas in November, Kansas City, November, is I believe that we can do a great grassroots effort through sports. So what I've done is I approached the Sports Authority here in New Jersey and the New Jersey State Interscholastic Athletic Agency to get their support, plus Legal One, and we have this nice partnership in terms of focusing on bullying in sports. And the reason is not so much about spending a lot of time with the kids, is that athletes have a different respect for their coach. That their coach tells them to show up on time, they will be on time. The coach has some kind of assignment, they're going to make sure to do the assignment. If a coach buys into this idea in terms of character off the field and how they're supposed to act and how they're supposed to treat, or what they're supposed to be, coaches and athletic directors are in a great position to create that paradigm shift we spoke about. Because most high schools, anywhere from 2/3 to a half of the school population, are involved with which activity? Sports. So if we get coaches and athletic directors understanding and training them in terms of what they can do in terms of influencing their players and the expected behavior in the classroom, you've already taken a third to a half of the school population to figure out the buy-in to this is how we want to be in our school, and we're not going to stand for it, because a lot of these kids do have great leadership skills. but they have yet to really hone in on them in terms of how to use them, as I often say, for the powers for good, not evil. And so I think that's an exciting, different approach. And there's no research, very little research here in the States on bullying in sports. There's some in Australia and Europe. And there needs to be a greater focus in terms of how we can create that grassroots effort, because athletes, when they're empowered, and it's part of their sport as a team, will take this thing, I think, much further along than any other organized group within a school possible. More than peer leaders and peer leadership, more than particular honors, whatever group, is you have a bulk of students already in a sport who can look at their coach, who can buy into it in a much quicker, much more efficient way.
Absolutely, that's an awesome idea, and I mean, it's ultimately putting discipline and core values into these students and into the kids and really ingraining it into the school society and the culture itself. Awesome. Anyways, that was with Randy Nathan, and I look forward to talking to you again and talk to Sprigeo soon as well. All right, have a great day.